Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Juicy and Jalen. We got the Double J coming on here in the Fishbowl Radio here this week. So, without further ado, introduce everybody to Juicy. How you doing today, Juicy?
Oh, I'm good. What's up?
And how you doing today, Jalen?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chief Tiger Nation. What's up?
What's up,
All right.
everybody?
So here's what we got going on here. So LSU men's basketball, they played Alabama, ended up losing that game. Alabama is currently leading the SEC pretty handily here with Tulane not Tulane, Tennessee, excuse me. They used to be in the SEC at one point, but Tennessee, Alabama, 6-1, 5-1 conference play. That's what they got going on here. So looking at what the stats show, what happened against Alabama and LSU losing to Georgia, I thought they might have been able to beat Georgia, but these last two games, the Tigers, they shot pretty well beyond the arc. Looking at what they did, need to get better at shooting field goals because they shot 38.6% against Georgia. Then they shot 42.3% against Alabama. They shot 71 times against Alabama. Alabama did very well shooting the ball from three-point land, which they made 14 of 34 for 41%. Alabama did. LSU shot 11 of 28 for 39.3. Offensive rebounds, LSU outbeat Alabama in that regard, but just wasn't meant to be in that game. And, Alabama just did a better job of just you know, just getting out there in the open and making the free throw shots was really the big difference. They were 25 of 28. LSU was 17 of 27. That's the game right there if you look at both these teams here. But yeah, LSU and Georgia, it was so close. You could have LSU, if they would have made two more free throws, they had a perfect free throw shooting game. But if they would have shot better from the floor, they'd have been better off in that game. So, Juicy, what was something you saw in these last two games that you think maybe LSU can improve on and, maybe climb the SEC standings instead of being toward the bottom in that regard?
Well, for sure. I mean, LSU, it was rough against Alabama, but I mean, for sure the free throw shooting, like you said. Well, if we want to joke around, we can say, well, they need to score more points. No, I'm joking. That's the obvious, but I mean, hold on, I lost track of what I was reading at him for a second. Yeah. So LSU for sure just need to shoot better from the field. The defense, obviously, especially against the Alabama game, they allowed 109 points. Which, if I both know, anytime you allow that much in a college basketball game, especially if you don't have like a really good offense, because we know LSU's offense isn't exactly the best. I mean, it's obviously not going to be a good day for you, and if you're not draining the shots along with playing bad defense, really, it just makes a bad combination. So, I mean, just got to get back to playing better defense and making shots from the floor. I mean, that's really what it comes down to in my eyes.
What you thinking, Jalen, about this whole LSU, these last two games?
Well, starting off against Georgia, LSU should have won that game against a very good competition in Georgia Bulldogs. But I was watching that game at the very end when LSU took the lead. I'm thinking, all right, LSU, all I got to do is get this one stop. And next thing you know, Georgia missed. But then their boy, one of their players got the rebound. He put it back up, got an and one. And it's just, they killed all the momentum. They ended up losing that one. And then they ultimately just got destroyed against the Alabama Crimson Tide team, who we talked about, Chief, who said, like, Alabama, best team in the SEC right now. LSU needed to beat Georgia. That didn't happen. Now they're on a not even 2-3 game losing streak, but we're not going to get into A&M because we already talked about that. But as far as the Alabama game, the Crimson Tide players, I mean, fast break points, they got so many on LSU. Like LSU would miss a shot, Alabama get the rebound, take it all the way down the court, score points, or LSU committed a turnover, Alabama took advantage. And those points just added up in the end, and that's why the score it was what it was. And it didn't matter what lineup Matt McMahon had in there, the Tigers just weren't ready for Alabama. Not the team that's the top of the SEC right now.
I don't want anybody to like assume that McMahon isn't trying his best out there, but LSU's basketball program since Will Wade left, they because they got them sanctions against them and stuff for doing stuff that Will Wade's doing at Lake Charles right now. That is one thing you have to look at here. So, just looking at this, the SEC standings here, LSU's back by 3 games behind the leaders of the conference, Alabama and Tennessee. Then you got South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky all at 5-2. Then you got Ole Miss, Florida, and Georgia. So at 4-3. So there's time. There's enough games left for LSU to make a run if they can just get in there and start winning some of these games. So, but the upcoming schedule here, they have Arkansas. Arkansas is 10-10 right now, and their RPI is 108. Then you got at Tennessee, Alabama comes to Baton Rouge, at Florida, at South Carolina, Kentucky at number 6, and February 21st they come to Baton Rouge. So, but there's been a trend in college basketball this year where it is so hard to win on the road more this year than it has been in the past. The home team usually wins normally as it is anyway, but this year is one of the lowest rates of road teams winning on the road that they have had in several decades. That's been a trend this year in college basketball. So coming with it there, they were on the road the last 2 games, they lost. But it seems like a lot of the road games for LSU have been played in conference so far because they only have, let's see, just starting when they got left, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you're looking at this trend here, and then you got Arkansas 1, 2, then they got 3, 4, 5, 6 home games left, and you got 5 road games. So you're gonna have to win all games at home. That's the only way you're gonna start gaining and try to steal 1 or 2 on the road here. A big win for them would be to knock off number 5 Tennessee would be a huge win for LSU. But as far as predictions go for this one, I'm gonna predict that I think they'll beat Arkansas. That's what I'm gonna go with here. Their RPI is down to 122 so far. They do have some good quadrant record wins, like 2-4 in quadrant 1, 2-4 in quadrant 2. So they beaten good teams this year. I think they'll string it together against Arkansas. I think they'll lose on the road to Tennessee. I think they'll lose again next Saturday against Alabama. So that's something that we'll have to look at once we get into it there. So I think they'll go 1 of 2 because that's just going to be a gauntlet schedule. They have their next 3 games for sure. What you thinking, Juicy?
Honestly, I mean, I think they could. Arkansas's at home. I think they can pull off that one. I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee. I mean, I'd be shocked if they did. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm not liking that. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama at home. I don't think that matters. That's my prediction for the next 3 games. I think they're going to lose the next 2 out of 3 after the next 2 out of 3 with only beating Arkansas.
What you think, Jalen? What's your predictions for the next 3 games for LSU men's basketball?
Yeah, I think the Tigers, they'll beat Arkansas. I don't see the Razorbacks as a big threat in the SEC, especially to a team like the Tigers who are up and coming. But like I said, against on the road against this Tennessee team who's ranked 5th in the nation right now, I think that the Tigers will lose. But I will say this: if they're able to go to Tennessee and beat that team, and then they have Alabama at home next, I'm gonna have them beat Alabama also, just because they'll be on that high and be like, "Oh yeah, we just beat one of the best teams in the nation, and we're gonna get revenge against Alabama, who's the best team in the SEC." Oh yeah, most definitely. So that would a 3-game win streak would be nice. It really would, but I don't see that happening. I think they're gonna lose against Tennessee and Alabama, unfortunately.
All right, we're gonna switch gears here and talk about LSU women's basketball here real quick here. So for those of you that if you haven't been paying attention, LSU women's basketball is pretty good this year. They lost to number 1 South Carolina, who South Carolina is undefeated again this year. They're 19-0. LSU, this is only their 4th loss on the year. Wait, no, not 4th loss, 3rd loss on the year. I was looking at the predicted records, excuse me. So predicted results has them going 26-4. They have their one home loss and then 2 road losses and a neutral loss. So it got them finishing 13-3, RPI of 21, which that'll be good enough to make the NCAA tournament. So their next 2 games is at Mississippi State and Florida, which it has them both winning both games here. And it has them winning all the way up to February 25th when they go on the road at Tennessee, and has them losing that one. And then it has them winning the rest of the games except that one loss there. So it's looking pretty good for LSU if they follow the predicted results here. So, but we can't really rely too much on predicted results here. The LSU toward the end of that South Carolina game was not really making good decisions, needless to say. They turned the ball over a good bit toward the end of that game. It seemed like, and some people were complaining about the referee, and I think they were just letting them play somewhat there. There was a couple of them that was kind of questionable calls, but I don't think it was enough to determine the outcome of the game because still, if you look at the stats here, um, the stats don't back up the referee's calls this game to be that way it is because South Carolina shot better than LSU through all phases. 3-point, 2-point on the floor. Free throws, same thing. Like LSU they went 4 of 9. South Carolina was 7 of 13. Offensive rebounding, LSU did outdo them by 1 point here. It just was what it is, basically. So LSU was 44.8%. They shot 30 of 67, whereas South Carolina was 31 of 65. This field goal is us combining both 2 and 3-point shooting there. So they're 47.7. So basically, yeah. Lord, LSU was leading at half there. LSU definitely got off to a strong start in that game. Then the second half just didn't go their way. They couldn't keep up the pressure on South Carolina. So 3-point shooting, LSU was 6 of 18, 33.3%. And South Carolina was 7 of 20 for 35%. So the way it went, that game wasn't that great for LSU. And then they played Arkansas. They beat Arkansas pretty handily. Like this one, LSU was shooting 48.6 from 4 that game. Arkansas was only shooting 27.8%. LSU's defense played very well against Arkansas, so they were able to. The only thing that game Arkansas beat them in was in free throw shooting percentage, which is at 94.1%. LSU is at 73.1%. The big thing in that game was offensive rebounding and second chance points. LSU out rebounded Arkansas 18-9. So there, obviously, second chance points is a big deal in women's basketball, sending as men's basketball. If you can get an offensive rebound on the board, you are doing a pretty good job there controlling the paint down low. Now, their next 2 games, I think they'll beat both Mississippi State and Florida. I think it'll be one of those pretty good there. If I'm LSU, I mean, being tied for second with Ole Miss and Tennessee at 5 and 2, you're 2 games back from South Carolina. You're probably not going to win the regular season SEC title. But if you're looking at tournament bracket standings and seeing where they're at here, this is basically what they have here. You want to be as high ranked as you possibly can. If you get in that top, LSU was number 2 entering that bracket last year. South Carolina was number 1. And South Carolina, they ended up winning the whole SEC here tournament last year, but they didn't make it to the national championship game last year. So if you can place yourself in that top 4, you're looking pretty good. If you're LSU, if I were them, I would try to either get number 2 or number 3 seed toward the end to set you up better toward the rest of the season. So, Juicy, what you think about the last 2 games of LSU against Arkansas and South?
Arkansas, they just dominated every aspect of the game. They shot well, got takeaways, and the game that I'm really most worked up about is the South Carolina game. Not even the referees or the officiating, because I mean they're humans. I mean there probably could be penalties in almost every second of the game. I always tell people that, but the thing that gets me, I mean, you just gotta make better decisions with the ball and don't turn it over is the main thing I can harp on, and just learn how to close the game out. That's what LSU led for at the end of the first 3 quarters. The only quarter they didn't lead after is the one that mattered the most, which is the 4th quarter. And so I mean, well, that's why I say the main thing is they just got to close the game out. And if they can do that, then they'll be fine the rest of the way, really, because that was number one team in the land in South Carolina. So that's just my point on that.
What you think, Jalen?
I mean, same thing like Juicy said against Arkansas, they just dominated from start to finish. I mean, that game is not even much really to talk about. It was pure domination. That's the game that we all knew they were going to win. But then against number one South Carolina, it's like, okay, this team is the best in the SEC, one of the best teams in the whole women's college basketball. You have them at home. Aaliyah Boston, their best player from last year, is in the WNBA. So it's like, okay, but these girls are still good. I just think LSU, they had this game. I mean, they had a good lead. They led through different parts of the game. I just think the LSU really should have won this game. And at the end, they just lost it. Turnovers, some bad shots. I think even though Angel Reese did foul out, I think even if Angel Reese didn't foul out, I still think the way that the women's team was playing through the stretch, through the end of that fourth quarter, I still think they were going to lose. I mean, it's just, and I don't really blame it on Kim Monkey. I mean, the players they're the ones who are out there that have to play. I just think that they just didn't execute in the end. That's how they lost against a very good team, which if they would have won, that would have been right there on their resume because everybody sees this LSU team as a superstar team with the players they've added. And don't get me wrong, Morrow had a great game, probably one of our best games all year, and they still didn't find a way to win. So it just is what it is when it comes to that game.
Discipline would have been a very good thing to know in that game for LSU. There was, I know there are some people kind of complaining about the not the fans, but the refereeing, but the data doesn't back it up, basically. So, Juicy, what you think? What's your prediction for the next two games? I got LSU winning both of them. What you got?
Mississippi State and Florida, yeah, I think they shouldn't have a problem with either one of those. I think they should win both of them.
Jalen, what you thinking?
Yeah, I think LSU is going to bounce back. They're going to beat Mississippi State, and then they're going to beat Florida at home.
Thank y'all for tuning in here to the Fishbowl Radio. And we're going to see y'all here next time here. So we got college baseball and college softball coming up for LSU. We're going to do a season preview of them next week or so. So we'll see what's going on there. Can LSU, defend their national title in baseball? We're going to find out here and what we think here next time here on the Fishbowl Radio. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.
Good night, y'all.